Somewhere beneath the ice-cold waters of the Arctic, there's a creature that was swimming in these oceans before Shakespeare wrote his first play, before the United States became a country, before the French Revolution, before the invention of the steam engine. This animal has been alive longer than most countries have existed. It moves like a ghost through the depths, nearly blind, hunting in near-freezing waters. And it might just be the oldest living vertebrate on planet Earth.
This is the Greenland shark, and today, we're diving deep into one of nature's most profound mysteries. How can anything live for 400 years? To understand the Greenland shark's incredible lifespan, we first need to understand the shark itself. Let me take you to one of the most inhospitable places on Earth. Somniosis microcephalus, the Greenland shark, inhabits the frigid waters of the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans. We're talking about waters that hover between -1 and 10 degrees Celsius. That's 30 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Cold enough to kill most marine life within minutes.
These sharks are massive. They can grow up to 7 meters long, that's about 23 feet, and weigh over a ton. They're roughly the size of a great white shark, but you've probably never heard of them. Why? Because they live in places humans rarely venture. In darkness, under ice, at depths of up to 2,200 meters.
For centuries, these sharks were known only to Inuit peoples and Arctic fishermen. Western science largely ignored them. They were considered a nuisance, getting caught in fishing nets, interfering with commercial operations. Their flesh is toxic to eat without extensive processing. Nobody thought they were special.
But in the last few decades, scientists began to realize something extraordinary. These slow, sluggish creatures that seemed almost prehistoric were actually living in prehistoric timescales. Some of the Greenland sharks swimming in our oceans today were born when Galileo was still alive. Let that sink in for a moment.
So, how did we figure this out? How do you determine the age of a shark that might have been born before your great-great-great-great-grandparents? With most fish, it's relatively straightforward. You count growth rings, in scales, in bones, in ear stones called otoliths. It's like counting tree rings. 1 ring equals 1 year.
But here's the problem. Sharks don't have bones. They're made of cartilage, the same flexible material in your nose and ears. And cartilage doesn't form growth rings like bone does. So for centuries, aging sharks was nearly impossible. Scientists tried various methods. They tagged sharks and tracked them. They looked at size and growth rates. But nothing was giving them accurate ages, especially for deep-sea species like the Greenland shark that grow incredibly slowly.
Then, in 2016, a team of researchers from the University of Copenhagen had a breakthrough. Led by marine biologist Julius Nielsen, they focused on something unusual: the shark's eyes. Specifically, the eye lens. Here's the fascinating part. The lens of your eye, and a shark's eye, is made of proteins that are laid down before birth and never replaced. The very center of the lens, called the nucleus, contains proteins from when you were in the womb. It's like a time capsule.
The researchers realized they could use radiocarbon dating on these eye lens proteins. Now, you might be thinking, isn't radiocarbon dating for ancient fossils? Usually, yes. But there was a unique opportunity here. Between 1950 and 1963, during the height of the Cold War, hundreds of nuclear weapons were tested in the atmosphere. These tests released a massive pulse of radioactive carbon-14 into the environment. This carbon-14 entered the ocean, entered the food chain, and ended up in the tissues of every living thing.
Scientists call this the bomb pulse. And it created an unintentional timestamp in every organism born during that era. If you were born after 1963, you have elevated carbon-14 in your tissues. If you were born before, you don't. Nielsen's team obtained eye lenses from 28 female Greenland sharks, sharks that had been accidentally caught by fishing vessels and were already dead. They carefully dissected the lens nucleus and measured the carbon-14 levels.
The results were stunning. The two smallest sharks in their study showed elevated carbon-14, meaning they were born after the bomb tests, after 1963. But the larger sharks? No elevated carbon-14. They were born before nuclear testing began. Think about that. These sharks were swimming in the Arctic before the space age, before television was common, before World War II. But the researchers didn't stop there. Using the bomb pulse data as a calibration point, they created models to estimate the ages of all the sharks. They factored in growth rates, size, and carbon dating uncertainty. The largest shark in their study, a female measuring 5 meters long, was estimated to be 392 years old, plus or minus 120 years. Even at the lower end of that estimate, we're talking about an animal that lived for nearly 300 years. At the upper end, over 500 years.
Let's put this in perspective. If this shark was born in 1624, that was the year New York City was founded, when it was still called New Amsterdam. That was when the Pilgrims had been in Plymouth for just 4 years, when Rembrandt was still a teenager. This discovery revolutionized our understanding. The Greenland shark wasn't just long-lived, it was the longest-lived vertebrate ever recorded. Longer than bowhead whales, longer than giant tortoises, longer than any other animal with a backbone.
So we know they live for centuries, but the question that fascinates scientists is why? What allows these sharks to defy the normal limits of vertebrate lifespan? The answer lies in a combination of factors, starting with the obvious one, extreme cold.
Temperature affects metabolism, the speed at which chemical reactions happen in your body. In warm-blooded animals like us, we maintain a constant body temperature, which means consistent, fast metabolism. We burn energy quickly. We age quickly. But Greenland sharks are cold-blooded. Their body temperature matches the water around them, barely above freezing. In these conditions, their metabolism runs in slow motion. Chemical reactions happen at a fraction of the speed they would in warmer water.
Scientists have measured their swimming speed at less than 1 kilometer per hour. That's 0.6 miles per hour. You walk faster than this shark swims. They've been nicknamed sleeper sharks because they appear almost dormant. This slowness extends to everything about their biology. They grow incredibly slowly, less than 1 centimeter per year. They don't reach sexual maturity until they're about 150 years old. Yes, you heard that right. A Greenland shark doesn't become an adult until it's older than the United States.
But cold temperatures alone don't explain everything. There's something else going on at the cellular level. Aging, in biological terms, is largely about damage accumulation. Your cells divide, your DNA gets copied, and errors creep in. Free radicals damage proteins. Telomeres, the protective caps on chromosomes, get shorter with each cell division. Eventually, your cells can't repair the damage fast enough, and you age.
Greenland sharks appear to have exceptional DNA repair mechanisms. Researchers have found that Arctic organisms, in general, have evolved enhanced protection against cellular damage. The extreme environment demands it. They likely produce specialized proteins that protect against oxidative stress. Their cells may have more efficient ways of removing damaged proteins and organelles. Think of it like having a better maintenance crew, constantly fixing problems before they become catastrophic.
There's also evidence that their low metabolic rate means less oxidative stress in the first place. When you metabolize food to create energy, you produce reactive oxygen species, basically rust for your cells. The faster your metabolism, the more rust you produce. Greenland sharks, with their glacial metabolism, produce far less. Their environment also shapes their longevity. In the deep Arctic, food is scarce. There's evolutionary pressure to grow slowly, reproduce rarely, and survive for a very long time. It's a strategy called K-selection, quality over quantity.
Compare this to salmon, which spawn once and die, or small fish that produce thousands of eggs but live only a few years. The Greenland shark is playing a different game entirely. In an environment where opportunities are rare, living long enough to seize multiple opportunities makes sense. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect is that we still don't fully understand it. Research is ongoing. Scientists are studying their genomes, looking for specific genes associated with longevity. They're examining their proteins, their immune systems, their reproduction.
The Greenland shark may hold secrets that could help us understand aging itself, not just in sharks, but in all vertebrates, including humans. Let's take a moment to imagine what life is actually like for a Greenland shark. Picture being born in the frigid darkness beneath Arctic ice sometime in the 1600s.
You emerge from your mother. Greenland sharks give birth to live young. As a pup, perhaps half a meter long, you're already equipped with the tools you need: powerful jaws, a keen sense of smell, and an ability to detect electrical fields from other animals. Within a few years, something strange happens. A small crustacean, a parasitic copepod, attaches itself to your cornea. It feeds on the tissues of your eye. Over time, you'll become almost completely blind.
This happens to almost every Greenland shark, but it doesn't matter much. Down here, in the perpetual darkness of the deep Arctic, vision isn't very useful anyway. You hunt by smell and by sensing the electromagnetic fields produced by muscle contractions in other animals. You drift through the water column, moving barely faster than the current itself. You're in no hurry. You'll have centuries to find your next meal. And what a varied diet you'll have over your lifetime. Greenland sharks are opportunistic feeders. They'll eat fish, halibut, char, salmon. They'll scavenge on dead whales and seals that sink to the bottom. They've been found with pieces of polar bear and reindeer in their stomachs, likely carcasses that fell through the ice or animals that drowned. Despite their sluggishness, they've even been documented hunting seals. Scientists aren't sure how. Some think they might catch sleeping seals. Others suggest they could use ambush tactics, remaining perfectly still and striking when prey comes too close. But much of your diet would be carrion. You're a janitor of the deep, cleaning up whatever organic matter sinks down from above. It's not glamorous, but it's efficient. Why waste energy chasing fast-moving prey when you can wait for the ocean to deliver food to you? Decades pass, then centuries. You grow, centimeter by centimeter. You survive ice ages and warm periods. You navigate by instinct and familiarity through the same territories your ancestors knew.
The world above the ice changes dramatically. Entire civilizations rise and fall. The Industrial Revolution happens. Electricity is discovered. Humans go from sailing ships to steamships to submarines. And you just keep swimming, oblivious in the ancient rhythms of the deep.
Around your 150th birthday, give or take a few decades, something changes. You reach sexual maturity. You're now large enough, old enough to reproduce.
Little is known about Greenland shark reproduction. They're probably ovoviviparous. Eggs develop and hatch inside the mother, and she gives birth to live pups. Litters might be around 10 pups, maybe more, but mating has never been observed in the wild. Perhaps it happens in the deepest parts of their range, at depths where humans have never been able to study them. Perhaps it's a rare event, happening only once every few decades. We simply don't know.
Perhaps it happens in the deepest parts of their range, at depths where humans have never been able to study them. Perhaps it's a rare event, happening only once every few decades. We simply don't know. This is one of the great mysteries that remain. For an animal that lives for centuries, we know remarkably little about how they create the next generation.
For millions of years, Greenland sharks existed in relative isolation, protected by the harshness of their environment. But in the last century, that changed. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, Greenland sharks were hunted commercially. Their livers were rich in oil, used for lamps and machinery. Thousands were killed, but the fishery collapsed because the sharks were so slow to reproduce. There weren't enough new sharks to replace the ones being killed.
Today, direct hunting is rare, but Greenland sharks still face threats. They're caught as bycatch, accidental captures in fishing nets intended for other species. Because they live at depths where commercial fishing occurs, they're vulnerable. Here's the problem. We don't even know how many Greenland sharks exist. Their population status is listed as data deficient by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. We lack basic information about their numbers, their distribution, and their population trends.
And then there's climate change. The Arctic is warming faster than any other region on Earth. Sea ice is disappearing. Water temperatures are rising. For an animal specifically adapted to extreme cold, this is potentially catastrophic. Greenland sharks have survived for millions of years because their environment was stable and predictable. Now, within a single shark's lifetime, and remember, that could be 400 years, the entire Arctic ecosystem is transforming.
Warmer waters mean altered prey distributions. Ocean acidification affects the entire food web. New predators and competitors are moving northward into waters that were previously too cold for them. Scientists are racing to understand these sharks before it's too late. Teams are using satellite tags to track their movements. They're taking genetic samples to understand population structure. They're modeling how climate change might affect their habitat. Some nations are beginning to implement protections. Norway and Greenland have regulations limiting bycatch. The European Union has restricted shark fishing in certain areas. But these protections are patchy and difficult to enforce in the vast, remote waters these sharks inhabit. The fundamental problem is the math. When an animal doesn't reproduce until it's 150 years old and produces relatively few offspring, populations cannot recover quickly from losses. If we reduce their numbers significantly, it could take centuries or millennia for the population to bounce back.
The Greenland shark is a reminder that some things cannot be rushed, cannot be replaced, and cannot be recreated once lost. These sharks are living links to the past, carrying within them secrets of longevity that took evolution millions of years to perfect. So, how long do Greenland sharks live? The answer is longer than almost any other animal on Earth. Up to 400 years, possibly even longer. Long enough to witness centuries of history passing above them while they glide through eternal darkness.
A Greenland shark alive today might have been born when Isaac Newton was developing his laws of motion. It would have been swimming during the American Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, both world wars, the space age, the information age. It lived through all of it, deep below, unchanged, unbothered. Their discovery has profound implications. These sharks prove that vertebrate lifespans can be far longer than we ever imagined. They demonstrate that in the right conditions, with the right adaptations, animals with backbones like ours can survive for half a millennium.
Scientists are now studying Greenland shark genetics and physiology, hoping to unlock the secrets of their longevity. Could understanding how these sharks resist aging help us treat age-related diseases in humans? It's possible. The answers are waiting in their DNA, in their proteins, in the slow, cold chemistry of their cells. But perhaps the most important lesson isn't about extending human life. Perhaps it's about perspective. In our fast-paced world, where everything seems urgent and immediate, the Greenland shark is a reminder that some things operate on different timescales.
These sharks teach us patience. They teach us that slow doesn't mean unsuccessful. They teach us that survival isn't about speed or aggression. Sometimes it's about efficiency, adaptation, and simply enduring. There are Greenland sharks swimming right now that were born before electricity, before automobiles, before flight. They've survived everything the ocean and time could throw at them.
The question isn't just how long they live, it's whether we'll protect them long enough for them to continue their ancient journey into the future. These sharks have earned the right to be here. They've earned their place in the ocean through millions of years of evolution and hundreds of years of individual survival. The ocean still holds mysteries, and somewhere in the cold, dark depths of the Arctic, the ghosts of time continue their slow, eternal swim.
If you found this deep dive into the Greenland shark fascinating, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Do you know that scientists discover sea spiders that feed on methane? Click the video to watch, and we will explore the incredible, the mysterious, and the scientifically amazing. What other ancient or extreme animals should we investigate next? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.